Welcome, everybody. This is Bitcoin Milwaukee, March 6th, 2014. And tonight we are joined by Brock Pierce. I'll let Brock do a thorough introduction of himself, but Brock is a Bitcoin entrepreneur. He's an entrepreneur first, and he's a very early adopter of Bitcoin. He is an investor in Robocoin and GoCoin, and we're excited to hear more about those things. I know many folks know a lot about Robocoin. GoCoin is relatively newer to the scene, so hopefully we'll be hearing more about that from Brock as well. And thanks again so much for joining us, Brock. We'll have you for hopefully about 20 minutes or so, or if that's all right with you. And go ahead, introduce yourself to our community here in Milwaukee and the YouTube viewing public as well.
Well, I guess hello Milwaukee, and hello everyone on YouTube. Yeah, I've been in the digital currency space since the late '90s, and have been following pretty much every form of new currency that's been attempted, and Bitcoin's obviously a phenomenal one here. So in the area of Bitcoin, I've started a number of businesses in the space. I'm a co-founder of GoCoin, which is a Bitcoin payment platform similar to BitPay. We also use alternative currencies. Litecoin is now live with a number of our merchants. I'm co-founder of a company called ExpressCoin. We're a retail exchange. Think Coinbase. We're number 2 in the United States today. And a number of other projects. I'm actually not an investor in Robocoin. I run Robocoin Asia, which is the exclusive distributor of the Robocoin machines into that region. I'm also I run KNCMiner.cn, which is the exclusive distributor of KNC Miner mining equipment into China, and I've got about 5 other projects in stealth. I'm a very active angel investor into the Bitcoin ecosystem as well. I've made 7 investments so far this year, which probably has me as the most active angel investor in the space. I started a syndicate on a website called AngelList, which is where people have the ability to pool their resources and co-invest with me. I've got, I think, the 6th or 7th largest syndicate on all of AngelList, which is for Bitcoin or cryptocurrency investments, and been an entrepreneur my whole life. I guess I got into digital currency in 1999 when I recognized that people playing video games had a desire to buy virtual currency or currency, and this is before any game company in the world was selling it. And so I started a business called IGE, which allowed you, if you were playing games like EverQuest or World of Warcraft, and you had more gold than you needed, the ability to sell that to me, and then I would sell it to those people that lacked, that didn't have the time but had the discretionary income. And so made a market in 2001, took that business from 0 to $100 million of revenue in a matter of years, eventually sold that business, but as part of that I built a supply chain of 400,000 people in China that were playing video games professionally to mine virtual currency. That was in 2002, 2003, 2004. I switched that to an exchange model, so I still have a virtual currency exchange for currencies around games. That business does $1 billion a year today. In countries like South Korea, we've got about 99% market share. So none of the ideas or concepts as it related to Bitcoin were novel to me. Unfortunately, the first 50,000 Bitcoin in my partner mined in 2009, we lost because I wasn't a believer in Bitcoin at first, though I was experimenting. When I say I wasn't a believer, I had seen 50 other projects prior to Bitcoin where people were trying to build a digital currency. Bitcoin was novel in a number of ways, which I didn't fully appreciate at the time. But the problem I had with all of these things is I said, you're painting a very utopian world to me. I can see how this is going to work once it's been built out and it's fully sort of distributed and lots of people are using it. But the problem I have is, how are you going to get from point A to point B? How do you go from a concept to actually getting people utilizing it where you get a critical mass of sort of activity? And it's that early getting from point A to point B that I had a difficult time grasping, because it's very easy to envision a world when you're talking about the letter Z. And so in my case, I said Bitcoin or something like this is the future, but is the future now, or is it 25 years from now? And so I've followed Bitcoin very closely since its inception, and then became a full-time entrepreneur in the space once it had become evident to me that the future was now.
I was fascinated to hear your experience with virtual currencies in the late 90s and things like that. And I searched around YouTube and could only get a real cursory view of it. So thank you for fleshing that out more for us. The writing was on the wall, I guess, when Bitcoin emerged, and you were one of the, from all of the prominent spokespersons, investors, entrepreneurs in Bitcoin, you're one of the guys who can claim that they were there from practically day one. Can you talk about what that was like? You did a little bit that, you weren't a believer initially, but what was the experience like with so few users back in 2009? And then, since you did talk a little bit about it already, maybe you can fast forward to when you became a true believer and, the quote-unquote moment you found Bitcoin.
Well, yeah, so I mean, because of my background in digital currency, anytime there was something, anytime I was trying to invent something new, a lot of those people would come to me to solicit my opinion. And in the case of Bitcoin, anyone that kind of stumbled across it would often, send me an email and say, hey, what do you think? So it was unavoidable for me not to be paying attention to it. Me and one of my partners dabbled in mining. We ended up losing our initial coin because it didn't value it highly at the time, but continued to watch Bitcoin. When it started to ramp the first time, I started thinking about actually getting engaged. And as for those of us that were around, it ended up crashing back down again, and I spent another 3 to 6 months not entering the space. And when it had its sort of second rise is when I started going, this is the time maybe to get in. And I guess the concern I had for a while, I guess I'd be what you'd call a Bitcoin ninja. I wasn't publicly, talking about the things that I was doing in the space. But the thing I was grappling with for a while before I had kind of publicly, started talking to everybody about the things that I was doing in the space was ultimately regulation and what the U.S.'s position was going to be on this. And I was trying to understand what that would be and what the risks to me personally would be. And I know exactly the moment when I decided to jump in full time, and that's when I determined that the United States is not really what matters when you start thinking about Bitcoin. Here in the U.S., we've got banking, we've got payment systems, we've got credit systems, we've got rule of law, we've got faith in the commercial sort of system. As far as the 200 currencies in the world, we've got one of the best currencies in the world. So, as a nation, Americans don't need Bitcoin like much of the rest of the world does. And when you start looking at places like Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia, I started realizing that even if some sort of really draconian laws were passed in this country, it wouldn't impact the long-term success of Bitcoin. And that was the moment when I said, well, there's nothing stopping me. Worst case scenario is, for whatever reason, the U.S. decides that Bitcoin's a bad thing, they ban it for whatever reason, I'll just stop doing business in this country, but it's not going to impact any of the things that I do or Bitcoin's long-term success. And that was, I guess, the eureka moment for me. Naturally, I don't think the things that I'm describing are going to happen, but before you make that level of commitment, in my case, to dedicating all of my time to a sector, I want to make sure that I've been thorough and thoughtful and thought through what are all the issues, what could potentially happen, and let's call it hope for the best, plan for the worst. And so after having done that, that was when I stepped into the space full time. And that was probably about 1.5 years ago.
Well, we're all glad you did. I know I am. Just kind of watching from the sidelines and things of all the projects popping up and all the capable entrepreneurs who, we need to help build this major worldwide project, like you mentioned. Maybe that's a good segue into, you talked a little bit about regulation already, but could you introduce us to GoCoin and also your work with KNC Miner, and a little bit about Robocoin and what you see for that, how that partnership came about. Just those, I guess, your most well-known, I guess, Bitcoin projects. And then if you want to just keep riffing and about the regulation hurdles in each of those, that would be great too.
Yeah, so I mean, in the case of GoCoin, we're a payment platform to enable merchants to accept Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies as a form of payment. So the bar can, you can buy beer, buy coffee, buy shoes, internet dating sites, whatever it is, we're trying to enable merchants to accept this as another form of payment, much in the same way they would have Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, whatever it might be. So GoCoin is trying to provide that enabling technology to merchants so that we as consumers or holders of Bitcoin are able to spend it, creating more utility for the currency beyond just a store of value or speculative investing. You know, for Bitcoin to fulfill its sort of vision that we as the community are creating for it, it needs to have, you know, the utility and the ability to use it needs to be there. And e-commerce or commerce in general, I think, is one of the areas in which we need enabling technologies. And so I'm very excited about the prospects of that business. We've been signing up merchants at a pretty extraordinary rate, and that's because Bitcoin is clearly the hot topic. And with some of the big merchants like Overstock and Tiger Direct recently enabling it, companies like Zynga, you're seeing more and more merchants getting comfortable with the idea of doing that. The main concern most merchants have is that, well, Bitcoin's volatile. You know, I've got bills to pay, maybe I have a thin margin. So the payments companies in the Bitcoin space are enabling merchants to accept Bitcoin, get all of the benefits of Bitcoin, but will not inheriting any of the risk. Meaning, we, at the time of transaction, if we were enabling a bar to sell, you know, a beer for whatever it is, $8, at the time of transaction, the merchant is guaranteed that $8 less a 1% transaction fee. And so we're responsible for the liquidation of that coin and any volatility that may occur during the time of transaction, to the point that we've actually converted that into dollars, euros, sterling, whatever currency it might be. So that's GoCoin. KNC Miner is the most successful of the...
Can I interrupt Chris for 1 second regarding GoCoin? I just have a question. You know, this is exciting. Sorry to cut you off, but you mentioned Tiger Direct and some of the other bigger merchants that have jumped on board with Bitcoin. You know, whether they're using Coinbase or BitPay, it seems that those two payment processors seem to be grabbing up those major businesses. Can you hint at or tell us anything you're able to about some larger retailers or other well-known businesses that might be soon to accept Bitcoin with GoCoin as their payment processor?
Yeah, obviously, if it's not public yet, I can't comment. Otherwise, I may lose those merchants. But they wouldn't be happy if I was announcing this in advance of their public announcements. But in the case of BitPay, they've been around the longest, and so naturally, they got more merchants than anybody. Coinbase, having raised $25 million from top-tier VCs just recently, obviously has a big budget and a sales force to go pursue many of these merchants. In the case of GoCoin, you'll see a pretty big announcement relatively soon. We just closed a huge deal today. There was an announcement a few days ago. A company called MedArt, which is the #2 player in the adult industry, they're adopting it. In terms of politicians, GoCoin actually built out the systems and tools to be in compliance with California campaign finance law. And so we have a number of politicians in the state of California that are accepting political contributions with Bitcoin. The upcoming potential mayor of Oakland, state assembly member Richard Bloom, and a handful of other politicians coming online. I personally believe, as a community, if we want the regulation, if and when it happens, to be regulation that is appropriate for the industry, not something that creates problems for the industry, I think part of what we need to do as a community is educate those people that are putting those laws in place. And I think one of the best ways to do that is representing to the, our elected officials that we are a constituency that matters, and that we vote, and that we vote with our Bitcoin wallets. And so I've been a proponent of educating politicians as to why this is important. So if you take Oakland, for example, and Brian Parker, who's running for mayor, Oakland is one of the less fortunate cities in our country where there's a lot of the population that has been denied access to the financial system. They don't have bank accounts. They don't have credit cards. A lot of those people are working for minimum wage. And when they get paid, they're getting paid with a check. And when they get that check, they have to go to a check cashing place, which in a very predatory fashion is charging them 10% of their income. And these people are very unfortunate in a way they're never going to be able to get out of the system they're in because they're being denied access to the financial system. And I think the social benefits of Bitcoin are just phenomenal. It democratizes the world in a way where essentially the entire planet now has access to the global financial system and internet economy. And I think in America, the people that need Bitcoin the most are what you call the unbanked. It's the least fortunate of those people that live in this nation that actually need it the most.
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations on your close of the big merchant that we will hopefully soon all find out about. Congratulations on that. I want to let you pick up where I interrupted you at, getting into KNC Miner, Robocoin, and other projects. But we had Andreas Antonopoulos in Milwaukee in person give a talk about 3 weeks ago, and I know that's a major focus of his attention is the unbanked populations in developing countries around the world, and also in the U.S. too. And I think we often lose sight of the fact that there are cities and regions, localities in the U.S. with large proportions of unbanked peoples, and I'm just encouraged by the fact that that's a focus of entrepreneurs like you and tools and technologies like GoCoin that can hopefully empower those folks. Are there any particular projects you want to mention with regard to that in terms of whether it's Oakland or other disadvantaged areas, Detroit and certain other areas of our country or around the world? Because I know you do a lot of international business.
Yeah, no, I mean that's for me. I'm an entrepreneur and a libertarian and a capitalist at my core, and my view is I want to be as successful as I can, much in the same way. Obviously not comparing myself in any way to Bill Gates, but he went and created his wealth, and then went and has devoted a lot of his life to philanthropic efforts. My focus has always been work, 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 and I'll get around to that later. As much as I have those sort of strong callings in life, like most of us do, we want to help people. To the extent that we can and we're able to. And what I love about this space is I'm a huge believer in the social benefits of Bitcoin. And it's the only time in my life where I wake up every day, I work my ass off to grow my businesses and create wealth for myself in the process. But at the same time, I feel like I'm a full-time philanthropist and hopefully changing the world in some way for the better. It's not often in life where you can find yourself working in a space where you can create wealth for yourself while at the same time enhancing the lives of everyone around you. I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we're grateful for folks like you. Thanks for your hard work there. Go ahead and pick up where you left off with KNC Miner, maybe a bit on Robocoin and your work there, and any other projects. And we should have plenty of time still to talk about some other big dreams and ideas as well.
Yeah, so KNC Miner is the most successful of the Bitcoin mining hardware companies. I have been a miner at various times throughout the years. When Avalon first released their ASICs, ASICs are application-specific integrated circuits. The way that mining used to be, you would use your regular computer, your graphics card. So we went from sort of GPU mining to what is then GPA mining to ASICs. And ASICs are where essentially, the software essentially resides within a semiconductor or silicon chip versus being software running on a platform. And what happens when you do that is it is just really, really efficient. It works much, much faster than it would in any other format. So the ASIC world is here, and you can't really mine Bitcoin unless you don't pay for electricity, unless you're running on a pretty powerful ASIC. So KNC Miner released the Jupiters and Saturns, and they've been enormously successful with that. The Neptune is the next device coming out. There was an announcement, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that KNC Miner has taped out on the world's first 20 nanometer chip at the CES Computer Electronics Show earlier this year. Intel announced that they were going to be making the world's smallest chip, which was a 22 nanometer chip. KNC Miner in the Bitcoin community is producing a chip more advanced in terms of size than anything Intel or AMD have ever done. So I think it's pretty amazing what we as a community of people are accomplishing here. And so very, very happy to be working with KNC Miner, Sam and Andreas, fantastic guys. And in the Bitcoin mining world, I think that they're the only group that has successfully, as a chip maker and distributor, has actually lived up to their promises in terms of timing. They have an attitude which is the reason I'm proud to be working with them, which is try to under-promise and over-deliver, which has not been the case with most of the companies in the space, though I'm a fan of pretty much everybody. Cointerra's just started shipping. Very excited to see their product on the market. You know, Ravi and those guys, I think, have done a fantastic job. And I know most of the players in the Bitcoin mining space. And that's an interesting segment of the industry. Without that giant decentralized network of nodes around the world, we wouldn't have Bitcoin as it is today. And the mining community is, you know, the group that's responsible for having gotten the network to where it is today. The stat that's out there and quoted often at this point is that the Bitcoin network today is more powerful than all of the world's supercomputers combined. So we have a very robust platform, and it's very, very secure as a result of the miners. So that would be, I guess, KNC, and so I handle the distribution of that product into China. The largest exchange in China, BTC China, I'm an angel investor in that company as well. And as I stated earlier, I've been doing business in China for a long time, about 13 years now. On the Robocoin front, solving another problem in the market, not merchants and creating more utility for your coin or mining and allowing you to more efficiently mine for Bitcoin. Robocoin is solving that, what you call the on-ramp and the off-ramp problem, and there's a number of companies solving that. You know, whether you be an exchange or an ATM, it's the same issue. How do you take your government-issued fiat, US dollars, euros, whatever it might be, and convert that into Bitcoin? And Robocoin's solution to that problem is in putting ATM-type kiosks around the world, so you can walk up with cash and buy Bitcoin. And there are some other machines out there that are more like vending machines that are also solving that problem. But where Robocoin is different is you also have the ability to withdraw. So you can walk up to a machine, deposit Bitcoin, and withdraw cash. So it works both ways. You can put money in and take money out. I think that that's also interesting back to the social benefit. The money remittance industry, and I'm sure Andreas mentioned this when he was with you, is a $500 billion a year industry. Western Union, MoneyGram, companies of that nature. They charge a 9% fee on average. The poorer the country or the poorer the recipient, the higher the fee. And I think machines like Robocoin I think are in a good position to to try and compete with those products and provide a lower cost solution to people around the world that are participating in the money remittance industry. The 4 biggest countries in the world of what you call migrant workforces are Indonesia, the Philippines, India, and Mexico. And this is where, if you live in these countries, it's not uncommon that members, your husband, your wife, your cousin, your father, your mother, may move to Dubai or London or some city around the world where there's greater earning potential. And when they make their money, they actually send those funds home. And those are the people, again, using that Oakland analogy, that are working very, very hard, being separated from their families to earn income and to send that money back. And again, they're losing typically 10% of the money that they've earned. With a Robocoin machine, if there was a machine in Dubai and there was a machine back in Manila in the Philippines, family member walks up with the cash that they've earned, puts the cash in their local currency, and their family member in a matter of minutes can withdraw cash in their home country far more efficiently than the existing money remittance industry. So I think that it makes buying Bitcoin and selling Bitcoin for us individually wherever we around the world easier, solving that on-ramp and off-ramp issue. And I think by the nature of the product and the cash component, I think it's got extraordinary potential around the money remittance industry.
Yeah, that is really exciting. Just the fact that, with your work with Robocoin, putting these machines in different countries and enabling much more easy transfers, and rather than folks having to go maybe use local Bitcoins or maybe some other local forum or something to find a trading partner to get to complete the remittance transfer. That is awesome. So I'm so excited about that. I wanted to ask you real quick with regard to the ATMs. We've seen, I was fortunate enough to use a Llamasu Bitcoin machine last summer in June, and that was a thrill. And I know that there have been very recently, I thought I would see, oh, did we lose him? Oh, there he is. Are you back, Brock?
I'm here.
Okay, cool. Where did you lose me?
I didn't lose you. I guess maybe you lost me. I've heard everything you've said loud and clear.
Oh, good, good, okay.
And I'm a huge fan of local Bitcoins, by the way. Great organization and largely responsible for a lot of us being able to get our Bitcoin. at least historically, when there were not a lot of other solutions available. And the Lamassu guys, I think, have a great product as well. Huge fan of everything they're doing.
Yeah. So, I really enjoyed using their machine last summer. I thought that was an early experience, and there were several months that went by before any, I don't know if I should say legitimate American Bitcoin ATMs showed up. It's only been very recently. Can you talk a little bit about the why that might be? I'm sure there's some regulation reasons and things like that, but the fact that I know there's a regulatory difference, and maybe you can elaborate on that, between the two-way ATMs, such as Robocoin, and the one-way ATMs, one of which is Lamassu, and there's a handful of others. Why have we only recently seen ATMs popping up in the USA when Canada's had a Robocoin machine for a handful of months now. Other countries have had Robocoin machines pop up, and other ATMs. I know the Lamassu guys got some machines out internationally. Elaborate on that for me. I guess why. I know America's a little bit more stringent of a regulatory environment, or gray, or uncertain maybe, but why only recently when some of us, had the good fortune to test drive these machines a long time ago?
Yeah, so part of it is that it's hardware. Depending upon the type of website you're building, that can be done relatively quickly. Building building hardware takes a lot more time. So there's that piece of it. But as far as the U.S. is concerned, yeah, from a regulatory perspective, there's a lot of existing regulation that was not designed for Bitcoin, but regulations that existed in the past. So what is Bitcoin from a regulatory perspective? Is it a currency? Is it a commodity? Is it a security? What is it? What regulations that already exist today govern these sorts of activities? And it's not clear is essentially the case, because these regulations were not designed for Bitcoin. So FinCEN had given guidance around how companies operating in the United States needed to function. And in the case of Robocoin, if it were perceived to be an exchange, that could have it, that would put it potentially into what would be the money services business. And depending upon what you're doing in the money services businesses, you may need money transmitter licenses in the states in which you operate. And each state has their own rules and unique licensing. So in the case of Robocoin, Robocoin doesn't operate machines. Robocoin builds machines and sells them to operators. And so the operators of those machines, depending upon the rules and regulations in the place that they plan on operating it, may need to be a money transmitter. And that's the reason why it's taken longer to come into the United States. But that's not so much just because that's not really a Robocoin issue, because the first Robocoin, there was only one, went into Vancouver. The rest of the machines had to be developed. That was essentially the first prototype. And now you're seeing a number of machines starting to be distributed now. There was a conference going on today and yesterday in Texas, the Texas Bitcoin Conference, and 3 Robocoins arrived in Austin for the show. And I believe there's one operating at the show right now. And so you should be seeing Robocoins rolling out all over the United States over the next few months.
Well, that's really exciting. We've been.
And by the way, not just the United States. You should be seeing them rolling out all over the world.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. We'll be making a number of announcements in Asia, which is the region where I specifically operate a portion of the Robocoin business. Obviously, I know the guys there well. Jordan and the rest of the founders, fantastic team, and they are definitely working hard to put Robocoins in as many places as possible, as soon as possible.
That's so cool. I know we've been trying to finagle a way to get a Bitcoin ATM, maybe one of those open source projects here in Milwaukee. We've kicked that idea around since summertime too, so that's something we're working on here. We'd love to do a Robocoin ATM too. I guess with a little bit of time we have left, I wanted to just hear just your thoughts briefly on your future outlook for Bitcoin. What are we going to see between now and the end of 2014? There's certainly been a busy week or two of current events.
Well, today in particular.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really
Satoshi found? What?
I know. Go ahead and tell us about that.
You've got 1 million people around the world looking for Satoshi Nakamoto, assuming it was a pseudonym this entire time. No one actually thought about looking for the obvious elephant in the room, which is look for Satoshi Nakamoto. It's really amazing. It took this long, and it took Newsweek to figure it out.
Yeah. Do you think
someone didn't open up the white pages?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, someone hadn't opened up the white pages to find him. So I was speaking on a panel here in LA on Bitcoin yesterday with Chris Larson, the founder of Ripple Labs, or Ripple, and the moderator is a writer for the New York Times. So he's here in LA for the conference. He woke up this morning and actually drove out to Satoshi's house. So I got to look at all the pictures and everything on his phone. He spoke to a couple of his neighbors, and at first I was a little skeptical, but the more information I've gathered, it looks like this is Satoshi.
Yeah, it's
and either way,
funny, the guy who,
whether he's on Bitcoin or not, he is the real Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah, he's the guy who invented a digital currency that transcended national borders because he was sick of paying exorbitant fees to buy his model train parts, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's what a story. And then naturally with Mt. Gox recently, I mean, the main thing that so my view of Bitcoin kind of long term, Bitcoin's the future. Bitcoin, the idea can't be uninvented. Maybe something better comes along, to use a social networking analogy. I don't know if Bitcoin is the Friendster, the MySpace, or the Facebook, but I know that Bitcoin, the concept, the things that we're doing here, is absolutely the future. I couldn't be more bullish. I think we are where the internet was in like 1991. I think by the end of this year we'll be where the internet was in like 1994. End of next year, maybe 1999, and it's because it's not going to take nearly as long for this to, I think, to take off, because we're not having to change human behavior. The Internet of Information, and think of this as the Internet of Money, the Internet of Information was something entirely new and novel. We all lived in, essentially analog lives, at least most of us, up until that time, and it took a long time for human behavior to change, to immerse ourselves essentially in the digital world. Now that we've done that, and we're utilizing technology pretty much at our fingertips every minute of every day, I don't think it's going to take a long time for this to take off. And obviously, we're still in the very, very early days. I think when people look back and you say, I got into Bitcoin in March 2014, people are going to go, wow, that was early. Because I'm constantly being approached by people saying, oh, is it too late? I'm like, are you kidding me? There's maybe only 3 million people around the world that have Bitcoin today. If you were getting into the internet when there were only 3 million people online, I'd say you were pretty early, especially for something this significant. And my view is that Bitcoin is as big as the internet, and I could even argue bigger. I mean, it's that type of event. This is the biggest thing that's happened in terms of innovation since the internet, and very excited to be an early participant and doing my part to do what little I can to build on the back of this technology and to help support it and to put it into as many people's hands as possible, and to change the world in the process.
Yeah, we're excited too. I'm always excited when new faces show up to our group, especially those who have not been exposed to Bitcoin for very long. And we have a couple of those tonight. And so I'm hoping they're excited to hear that they're early adopters. When they leave here tonight, they're going to leave with some millibits. We make sure of that with all of our new members. And I encourage anyone who watches this YouTube broadcast, who's watching right now, go to your local meetup and make sure that if folks come who don't possess Bitcoins, that you put some Bitcoins in their hands. I think that's the best way to get people to it, obviously to get them to adopt it, but to get them to understand it. I mean, this is a topic that's really over the head of lots of people, and if you put it in people's hands and you give them Bitcoins and you have them send some Bitcoins, I think that that can overcome a lot of the technical barriers of understanding that might exist. I'm always encouraged when I talk to all of these folks that we get to host and get to communicate their projects and their ideas to our meetup. And I just want to thank you so much, Brock, for joining us tonight, taking time out of your very, very busy schedule to share with us and share, hopefully, with more people who will watch this YouTube. video in the future. Really quick, how can people, if they have a great idea and they want to contact you, because you mentioned you're a fantastic angel investor and you've been very active this year, how can people reach you for that, number one? And number two, what can we do to support the projects you're working on? GoCoin, Robocoin, KNC Miner, obviously, you know, using those products, but what else can people do to support the work that you're doing, the intrepid work that you're doing?
Well, first of all, keep spreading the word, and always happy to talk Bitcoin. I never get tired of it. I can talk Bitcoin 24 hours a day, you know, pretty much all year round. But I mean, continue to spread the word, help people understand, you know, what it is, why it's significant, and why it matters, and what they can do to get involved. If I show you my blockchain wallet right now, you just see lots of Bitcoin being given away on a daily basis, and some days there's probably 50 transactions where I've just gifted Bitcoin to people and welcomed them to the Bitcoin economy. But as far as getting a hold of me, I'm the Los Angeles city lead for BitAngels, which is an organization of Bitcoin angel investors. I'm also not hard to reach. Probably the best place would just go onto LinkedIn, send me a friend request or a message, or since this is going on Google, I'll not pass out my email here, but you know, feel free to pass along my email address to anyone in your local meetup that wants to reach out to me. I'm not a hard guy to get a hold of. Sometimes, though, I don't respond, so ping me twice because I'm inundated with email.
We understand. I'll make sure to do that with our members here. Thanks again, Brock, for joining us. You know, I had a ton of other questions, but we're going to let you go. Hopefully we can have you back. I know there's other partners of yours that you and I talked through email about hopefully having on in upcoming weeks. So please connect me with them, and I'll look forward to touching base with you in the near future. Thanks again so much for joining us, and thanks again to all of you out there watching in YouTube land. Brock Pierce, thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, guys. Enjoy Milwaukee. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.